I am NetMoverSitan. Welcome to Chapter 8.5 Part 2, or Episode Arknights. Whatever you want to call it, this is it. It was year 985-02. Dante was disoriented, struggling to make sense of whatever was happening. They were exploring a Lobotomy Corporation branch facility in District 8 when their consciousness sank into the depths. The sense of cognition, a concept without form, was floating into the shadow of an ever-widening river, swept up by its currents to nowhere. Then they remembered running into an abnormality. But this didn't make sense, as Sard told them that the District 8 branch facility didn't have any abnormalities. I suspect that they either broke out or were transferred to the main facility just before the fall of Lobotomy Corporation. Well, whatever they encountered there was more otherworldly than any that they've encountered so far in their journey, and deep blue. It's unlikely to be the bluish star, the aberration of the blue star abnormality. The blue star sucks those that lose their minds into itself. The aberration, however, pushes people away. It might be the star luminary which seeks to return to a place. Unless it was the blue star itself that somehow escaped the library, or something else entirely. Well, whatever it was fathomlessly blue and seemed to have a pull that endlessly drew them into itself. Just as they were about to recall what this abnormality was, a myriad of sceneries and a flood of incalculable thoughts crashed into their mind like waves before ebbing away from its shores, lost and adrift somewhere within themselves. When they realized this, asking how long they're going to be adrift, feeling like they're floating away, is an unfamiliar sensation. Floating around in that state for a while, then an unfamiliar voice brought their mind into focus, asking if they're Dante. This started to clear up their vision as that voice broke through the waves. A concerned expression came into view. Dante confirmed this in a way that even those that can't understand their ticking can. This individual saw this as a relief. She then shouted to Gregor. Then Dante had regained consciousness. She relayed that as well. Just as they were about to ask this rabbit-eared individual, their drowsiness came back with the terrifying memories of that dream, rendering them unable to speak. After a period of time passed, they woke up to find out that they were at that point, and where here was unfamiliar. The girl that they met earlier was sitting atop a rock and silently taking in the sights. Who probably saved them? Who really does have rabbit ears? Then they understood that they needed to find out where they found themselves. She told them that they're standing by the Iberian coastline, then asked how they were feeling. Dante was disoriented, but otherwise nothing else was wrong. Iberia, that was unfamiliar to them. Dante thought that since they were next to the ocean, they might be in District 21, specifically the Great Lake. They saw the city was still full of more unknowns to them. Well, more than the knowns anyway. She told Dante that their colleagues were radioed in when they briefly woke up earlier. They'll be there soon. Dante at least knew that the others were there, but there were still questions. Then it registered to them that the others were found. This was concerning as they weren't in the immediate area. While this individual was confused by Dante referring to them as sinners, she remembered running into them earlier. They were looking for one with a clock for a head. This could only mean Dante. Yes, only mean Dante, making them realize that having that head comes in handy for easy identification. Then Gregor and Honglu caught up with them, Gregor catching his breath. Dante was relieved to find them. And, let's just say they woke up within sight of an unfamiliar place, along with an unfamiliar face, and among that, displacement. It was a relief for Dante to find two that was familiar to them. Gregor then went on to explain that Miss Rabbit told them that Dante was found unconscious by the ocean, and he came as fast as he could, and he was worried that something bad might have happened. He was glad that they were fine. Honglu asked if they were lost at sea. Dante wasn't sure. They were fine. Thankfully, they weren't able to drink water, and the head was waterproof. Gregor asked if it was waterproof, asking that they get that checked. He then steadied his breathing, then lit his death stick. There was a lack of concern, hinting that they're not in that much danger. Dante wanted to know what happened. Where were they? Then Honglu reminded them of the Lobotomy Corporation branch facility. Apparently, Jia Xichun told them about it. Likely where the golden barrel came from and why there were no abnormalities supposed to be there. Jamu likely made sure that what mattered was dealt with. Dante confirmed that they did. They ran into a new abnormality. So it was none that are currently known. Honglu continued by saying that they got sucked into it before they had a chance to do anything. Gregor thought that it was the end for them, especially as Dante was sucked in as well. But when they woke up, they were face down in a ditch, but otherwise fine. But were quite concerned about them being missing. Dante let them explain what happened to them. Honglu told them that they wanted to search for them immediately, but it took a while for them to find out where there was. This told Dante enough to understand that they were not in District 21. Honglu told them that some thought that initially, but it was unlikely as Ishmael was certain that this wasn't the case. Gregor added that Ishmael suspected that they might be in an unknown area within the outskirts part of the Great Lake, but this was unlikely either, considering what the rabbit-eared lady said. She's met all kinds of people all over Terra, but none who referred to the Iberian Sea in that way. Dante was confused by these strange terms. Terra, Iberia. Then Dante asked who she was. Gregor was surprised that they didn't do this sooner. Dante told him that this was a lot to take in. Honglu saw this as understandable as they did just wake up for this, allowing her to introduce herself. She was Amia, leader of Rhodes Island. Dante told her that he's manager at Limbus. Their manager at Limbus Company, thanking her for saving. Gregor added that Rodeo Island was a pretty big corporation, but he felt awkward at speaking this next part, saying that she doesn't know what the head was at all. Amia confirmed this. As far as she was aware, there was no organizations in Terra with the characteristics that matched what Gregor explained. At least not one that's called the Head. Well, the description of that organization is one that rules by fear and delivers brutal retribution to any that violate their laws enough, especially if it's patent violations or evading taxes. They're especially brutal to non-humans and those that make them, organic or AI-based. She also corrected Gregor, it's road, not rodeo. Dante apologized as Gregor's terrible with names. Dante also understood that they weren't in the city anymore. Honglu found it strange for any higher-up at a huge corporation to know less about the Head than they do, let alone be completely clueless about it. And you would know, Honglu, you have a sister that's in charge of H Corp, and another sister that's a major player in Q Corp, that tried to take over twice. Gregor then repeated the suspicion that this was a previously undiscovered zone of the outskirts of the ruins. Honglu suspected that they were in a completely different world. This was not good to Dante at all. They were in deeper than they thought. Well, if this was true, then this wasn't like Chapter 5.5 Part 1, Miracle at District 20, where they found themselves in the outskirts via a door in the corridor, where they fought monsters in a toy factory, gnomes and satata, who made gifts out of humans, where this was on this occasion, or rather that occasion, all for finding clothes for Heathcliff to look presentable in. Amia noticed this distress, and understood that there's a connection to something that's happening there. Dante wanted to know what that meant. Amia explained that recently, anomalous signs and events have been occurring in Iberia, ever since a mysterious dimensional door appeared at sea. This was somehow, this was connected to something distant, to something never observed before. Yes, this mysterious dimensional door that appeared at sea, and Dante understood enough to know that this dimensional door was how they somehow managed to cross over to that world. Wanting false inputs, then asked where the others were, after noticing that they weren't there. Gregor thought that this was a bit late to look around for them. Honglu told them that there was a settlement near there, where they're helping out where they can, while taking turns searching for Dante. Gregor didn't think how difficult it would be to search for someone when they were in an unfamiliar world. Apparently he barely slept. Dante understood that they were all tired, asking if it was just them. Gregor denied this as Ishmael and Yi Sang were the other half of the search party. They were the last group in rotation, suspecting that they were searching in a different location for them. They got the news early, thanks to Amia's comms gear. The other team didn't. Sadly, the other team has no way to get in touch with them. So they'll continue the search until their shift is done. Amia then asked about the village that was mentioned earlier. Gregor understood that she's not been there yet. It's not easy to find. Dante understood that they should meet up with the others, so they should head there. Then something caught Amia's attention, briefly silent before speaking up carefully. She wanted to accompany them there. Gregor saw no reason to refuse her, as she helped them find Dante and she knows more about that place than they do. Amia didn't know about Iberia that well either, but she'll be of some help. Amia made it clear that they've closed their borders and locked out any foreign influences from affecting them. but she did get a briefing before that mission. Gregor asked how she got in, if that's the case. Amia told them that they followed Dr. Kalski's instructions and they illegally crossed the border. Well, it's only illegal if you get caught. Dante was alarmed by this. Honglu asked if she crossed the border without obtaining permission. She justified this by saying that they had to investigate how and why that dimensional door came to be. Dante asked if it was normal for pharmaceutical companies to be doing that. Gregor understood that they usually dispatch their agents for missions. Amia confirmed this. Rhodes Island is a pharmaceutical company researching treatments for people infected by oropathy. But they also work to prevent and assist in the management of various situations that can occur in high-risk areas. Dante understood what high-risk areas were like. Gregor didn't think that she came there alone, asking where the others were. Amia then explained that they were forced to split up due to certain forces that were in pursuit. Then she noticed something. Her ears twitched, and she saw a part of the shore behind large and cragged rock formations. Dante wanted to know what they're supposed to. Then they saw one wielding a lengthy greatsword and two familiar faces with her. This girl demanded that they move. They're in the way. Yisang told her that she needn't worry. They have experience in fighting monsters like them. That girl wasn't worried. Ishmael believed that having 3 fighters was better than having just one. Besides, she's the first person that they ran into out there. So they have many questions to ask. Dante called out to them. Yisang was relieved to find that they were safe. Ishmael was getting ready for a 3-day-long search. She was worried that they'd never find them. Not just because the next time they die without them, they would stay dead. Honglu told them that they found them thanks to the help of Amia. This girl that was with the other 2 was familiar with Amia. Yisang asked if she knew her. She believed that this could wait until the sea monsters were dead. Amia addressed her as Skadi, asking if they were the Seaborns that Dr. Kalsit mentioned. Skadi referred to them as sea terrors. They were less sophisticated, believing that they were there for her. Dante wanted to know what they were, and then they heard something sticky and viscous slithering against the rocks. They turned towards the source. I could smell the heavy wet scent of brine. Strange monsters. Unlike distortions, unlike abnormalities, unlike anything that they've seen. It's as if the sea itself was encroaching on land. Ishmael was sure that they weren't at the Great Lake, but she wasn't so sure anymore. The smell of brine made her wary, feeling more apprehensive than anyone else. Dante asked if they were whales or mermaids. Ishmael wasn't sure. The Great Lake and the outskirts were full of unexplored mysteries. Yisang asked what their senses say. Dante saw the closest comparison were with the whales, but this wasn't conclusive. This was not very reassuring to Gregor. Amir saw more on the horizon. They should prepare for battle. Dante saw talking as worse than pointless, on this occasion at least, so it's time to take them out. Then they fought the Sea Terrors, the lesser version of Seaborn. Personally, I used the Haishu identities of Yisang and Gregor against them, along with Ishmael's role swap identity, and Honglu's bad ending identity. as it makes the most of what they had. The Seaborn were weak to physical and all sin affinity except wrath, lust, and envy. They then realized that the sea terrors can inflict sinking and also nervous impairment, which staggers at 30 counts, and fixed damage equal to 25% of maximum HP is inflicted. More sinking is inflicted if no sinking is on the target. And if enough sinking is on the target, clash power increases, and if the sea terrors are at 35% HP or less, all coins are unbreakable. Or more specifically, these deep sea sliders. The sea terrors are lesser seaborn, animalistic compared to others. They can gradually evolve physically, gradually becoming sea monsters, which can develop human-like intelligence and consciousness. All seaborn are treated as equal to their kin, having a hive mind, a collective consciousness, a psionic one rather than a technological one, like the Borg in Star Trek. They can evolve quickly without needing to do so by reproduction. Terra is a world that's similar to ours, but slightly more advanced. In a number of places, it's been devastated by a number of catastrophes, ecological disasters, requiring nomadic cities to maintain some form of civilization, similar to the cities on wheels and mortal engines, built for similar reasons. Now, these disasters left behind orogenium, which is a black crystalline material, a mineral left behind, a source of energy and material for engineering, along with being a catalyst for orogenium arts, which allows them to transform matter and energy using orogenium. This sadly led to oripathy, an infection that was caused by exposure to orogenium. Rhodes Island is a pharmaceutical company they care for and treat the infected. They're also a paramilitary organization. Well, they're certainly more humanitarian than most groups in the city. They're also less discriminating against different races, infected or otherwise. While they seem to be politically neutral, that's put into question at times. As for Amia, she's a ranged specialist of the Cortus race, more or less. Yeah, she's Cortus more or less, as she's not entirely Cortus, let's just say that. The Cortus has rabbit ears. Amia is she's the public face of Rhodes Island. She certainly knows what she's talking about. Much of her background isn't known, but she's a capable leader, despite her young age. Scuddy is a melee specialist that can block the enemy. She was a bounty hunter working for Rhodes Island. As for what she is, that's complicated. I'll go into that at a later point in this. She focuses on defeating the more difficult battles and targets. As far as Iberia is concerned, that is a theocracy that was once a secular monarchy and a maritime empire with a powerful naval fleet. It's now run by the Inquisition, who have isolationist policies. There have been decades-long conflicts. Iberia is likely a reference to the Iberian Peninsula, where Spain and Portugal is. The Liberi, or the Libari, yes, that's a better way of putting it, they have avian traits. Their hearing and eyesight are superior. although those traits are not easily visible. Well, it depends on what they're wearing. After the sea terrors were dealt with, Amia said that all remaining enemies had returned to the sea. Ishmael didn't think that she'd have to deal with anything remotely like that outside the Great Lake. Gregor believed that it would have taken the whole day if Skadi didn't occupy the other half, while Amia helped them from a distance. After a quiet moment, they looked at Skadi glaring at them with palpable alarm. She said that they were strange people who transformed, likely commenting on the identities, where they utilized the abilities and skills of other versions of themselves, and not due to them being Super Sentai empowered. For a start, no pointless explosions behind them upon transformation. She also spoke of Dante having the head of a clock. Gregor saw both as true. Amia had a theory. They have something to do with the dimensional door that they're supposed to be investigating. Dante said that it was nice to meet Skadi. Skadi could only hear ticking clock. Hongdo explained that only he and the rest of the damned dozen can hear them. Then he noticed something. Gregor asked what was up. Hongdo was wondering how Amia can seemingly understand Dante. Ishmael wanted to know that as well. Dante didn't question how weird that was. Not many can understand them besides the damned dozen. One notable example is Demian, who seems more than human. Amia made it clear that the voice was still a ticking clock. But it's almost like she can sense what they were trying to say, what kind of emotion they were trying to convey. This reminded Dante of Demian. It's also similar to how Virgilius can do so. Dante didn't see that as a bad thing. Ishmael saw it as a hassle for Faust or Honglu to need to translate. She wanted to know how she can understand Dante, but they were short of time, asking if they're heading back. Gregor has no better plan, and Amia is likely to be coming with them. Dante said that she'd help them find their way back. Amia said that she'd be working with Ishmael and Yisang as well. Ishmael had no problems with that. She did help out greatly. She also knows more about that place than they do. Yisang advised getting to the village while it was still within daylight hours. Skadi asked how long the journey would be. Gregor didn't have an idea of this. They didn't have a clock on them. He didn't think that it was far. They just needed to walk along the coastline for a bit. Skadi then silently pointed in Dante's direction, indicating that their head was a clock. Honglu explained that Dante couldn't tell the time as they're not on time. Skadi asked why the clock head. This frustrated Dante as they didn't choose to get the clock-shaped head. They looked away at Skadi. Yes, they looked away at Skadi, whose eyes were fixed on their head. Skadi didn't see the coasts of Iberia as good places for people to live. They can go anywhere in the world and thrive at places that meet the ocean. The seaborn thrive in the places that meet the ocean, so how did people manage to build a village at a place like that? Yisang saw that while the seaborn or sea terrors pose a certain difficulty in survival, they're hardly the kind of monsters with the strength to drive out the population. Skadi advised him not to judge them based on that skirmish. Gregor is asking if she's telling them to be on their guard. Amia told him that Skadi is a bit curt at times, but she's not a bad person. Ishmael didn't see her as wrong, as there might be stronger variants of them. Dante could tell that asking father about them without a good reason is not advisable, so they quickened their pace to the village. Yeah, as for the clock head, that is there to facilitate time inversion with the damned dozen, which can also heal non-lethal injuries. As for what the clock part itself is showing, that's the doomsday clock, where the closer it is to midnight, the closer everything gets to be well and truly. Seeing as it's 985-02 now, 985-07 is 5 months away. And if the trailers are spoiling plain sight, that's when a certain song by AC/DC will be quite fitting, even for the city standards, and that's already a place where hell can't be imagined to be much worse. They arrived at the village that the others found themselves, but Dante didn't think that it looked like one, more like the ruins of one. Amir didn't think that any proper upkeep has taken place in quite some time. Skadi can tell that they're there, living together. Dante could tell that the buildings told the stories of former prosperity from a bygone age. No footprints was left on the wet, muddy ground. They saw a rotting sign marked with the name Faro Moreto, Spanish for Dead Lighthouse. The entire village looks like it was abandoned. This site was not seen often in the city. Abandoned ruins. Gregor agreed, as someone who would quickly capitalize on this and repair it. Better than that, anyway. Seeing it as free real estate, Dante then wanted to know where the others were. Honglu told them that they were in a clearing down there, where then someone shouted that they were caught between two great ships, referring to the event in Chapter 5, when two ships in the Great Lake were about to fuse together, with Mephistopheles right between them. The locals were impressed by this, and this shouting was clearly from Don Quixote, who continued with the part where Ishmael gave the command. Dante knew where the others were now, certainly after a certain blood fiend made her presence clear. She was sharing adventurous tales, standing atop a low podium like an actor on a stage, telling tales of their adventures like some travelling performer, where she said that Ishmael shall never, only to be stopped by Ishmael, asking what she thought she was doing. Don Quixote told her to stop blocking her mouth. She was giving them the tale of their adventures on the Great Lake. She called for Dante, once she noticed them, seeing that they brought them there. This caught Heathcliff's attention as well. The villagers were wary of Dante with the burning clock for the head. One of them compared them to the legendary Sarkas, with a flaming head. Sarkas being humanoids with a variety of physical traits, resembling demons. While some remove their horns, this can be seen as humiliating. Their lifespan is considerable, living for millennia. They also have genetic memory. They're also more vulnerable to Oripathy, although it also gives them resistance to Oripathy arts. So I can see why they'd be wary of Dante. A villager asks why one like them would visit. Mathot told them that while their exterior may carry elements that inspire fear in some, it's not a cause for alarm. Sinclair backed him up on that. Dante is their manager, and the rest are... Scuddy was silent at this. Amir greeted them. Sinclair asked who they were. Honglu told them that they're two nice people who helped Dante. Amir was the leader of Rhodes Island, and Scuddy was an operator. They'll be coming along with them for a while. Heathcliff wanted to know what they meant by that. Amir then told them that they have similar business, as the dimensional door that they're investigating has something to do with them waking up there in Iberia. As Amir was getting the others back on the same page, the villagers during this approached them. Dante hopes that this was because they didn't see them as a threat. One of them asked if they're friends of their saviors. Scuddy wanted to know what she meant. Don Quixote confirmed this, although that's quite a grand word. Masson made it clear that this applies to Faust and Urtis. Faust confirmed this silently. This was slightly pleasing to her. Dante understood something happened. Yisang told them that they were quite mistrustful when they first arrived. We then go back to the previous day, when one with pointed ears asks, what business did outsiders there have? Another asks if they're from the Inquisition. A different villager feared the worst. What do they do? After all they went through to actually get there. That pointed-eared one dismissed this as they didn't carry scriptures or lamps, wanting to find out who they were. Gregor didn't think that they're going to trust them anytime soon. Ryushu wanted to STNC, snap their necks completely. Then PTSD, pillage their storage depots. Sinclair told her that they can't do that. They have it hard enough as it is. And Honglu didn't think STNC was a good way to get started either. Rodia asked if they should find help elsewhere, commenting on how thin their arms were. Not seeing them as being in any shape to help out. Yisang suggested that they find out where here was. While it resembles District 21, Ishmael doesn't recall seeing or learning of any place that looks like that. She can't say that she's been to every corner of that region. The pointed-eared one asked again what business they had. Masson noticed that their fingers were tightening around the grips of their weapons. If they're silent for much longer, they might turn hostile. Sinclair told them that they're from Limbus Company. Don Quixote shouted that they were fixers of justice. This angered Heathcliff, telling her to keep it down. The pointed-eared one was unfamiliar with that. Urtis saw something, then asked about the blueprint, if he's looking to repair a vessel, which is suggested by the construction materials. A villager referred to the pointed-eared one as the chief, with a voice of caution. The village chief told her that this doesn't concern her. It's not something that a mere outsider can understand. While Urtis hadn't seen an energy source like that before, she asked if they ran tests to rule out any stability issues. Yisang saw that the heat exchanger was powered via a similar method of fusion energy, asking Faust what she thought of this. Faust considered it old-fashioned by her standards, but she recognized parts of the design. Certainly with the core energy source. She was unsure of the stability, but the technology was energy efficient. So, the Project Moon universe is more advanced in many ways compared to the Arknights universe. This caught the chief's attention. She identified this all by merely glancing at the blueprint. Urtis identified him as the one in charge and had a proposition for him. Back in the present, Yisang finished this by saying that in return for assisting in their ship repair, they would get a ride in it. Faust theorized that they'd be able to to find a way back by going out to sea, and Dante asked if they can find a way back there. Faust wasn't certain of this. This was based on a hunch, and this caught Dante's attention. Suspecting that Gesellschaft was, Faust told them that there were no issues encountered in the repair process. She expressed more emotion than usual, whispering in a low voice to Dante that her connection was suboptimal. Dante asked if it was still connected. Faust confirmed this, but simple exchanges of information can take many hours, so it's like if the internet connection was terrible. It can still connect, but it's painfully slow and can cut out at any time. Dante suspected it was like with the warp train because they were outside of their universe. Faust saw it that way. They're connected to an unknown universe on this occasion. The pathway back to where they came from hasn't closed yet, so it's different to the warp train. Dante understood that to get back. Faust finished this by saying that they need to travel through the pathway, which is why they're repairing the ship to head out to sea. Faust reminded them that she's a genius. Dante remembered Amia speaking of a dimensional door, which might be what they're looking for. Faust seems to see it that way. This calmed Dante, knowing that there's a way back. Dante then asked when the repair job would be complete. Urtis came to them and told Dante that most of the time-consuming parts of the repairs was done by the locals. It should take a day, 2 at most, to get the core parts up to standard. Dante understood that they'll be staying there for a little longer, asking how they managed last night. Gregor told them that they were looking for Dante, taking turns between that, repairing and resting. None got a proper night's sleep. Sinclair added that they weren't cold as the villagers kept the fire going for them. Rodia then added that they helped with the local map and an item that she didn't know what it was for. Ishmael saw it as a sack used to collect water. She knows how to get it installed. Yisang saw it as a repayment of Faust and Urtis helping them, yet it's generous, even considering how transactional this was. Dante saw that they're giving them the best treatment they can. Sinclair told them that, as far as food was concerned, they were eating cookies and bread that Rodia was keeping in her pockets, as otherwise they'd be eating into the villagers' supply. It's tight enough for them as it is. Dante questioned how Rodia was carrying enough to, 12 of them. That's likely for emergencies, as it's unclear how often they can stop for supplies, so she likely gets what she can and then saves that for when she can't access it on a more regular basis. I suspect that Rhodes Island has their own emergency food supplies. Heathcliff spoke of them offering dried fish, but they refused. He wasn't comfortable taking food from the needy. Skadi was silently observing this. The chief told them not to concern themselves so much about their hospitality. They've done more than enough to earn their keep. They saw that the low, rumbling voice came from an old man that had, an outfit that distinguished itself among the others. Otis identified him as the chief, asking if there's a place to stay the night. The chief considered this and told her that they did have place to shelter from the misty humidity, pointing out the empty building, telling them that they're free to occupy it. Gregor asked if he was sure. He didn't mind sleeping on the streets. Rodia didn't share that belief. She wanted to sleep with a roof over her head since the previous day. Urtis didn't see this as healthy. They'll catch a cold if they do that. She's fine with them doing that, but not Dante, or those from Rhodes Island, describing them as honoured guests. Amir didn't know what to think of that description. Urtis heard of what happened from the 4 sent to look for Dante. She feels gratitude for her finding and rescuing Dante, understanding that she is the leader of a pharmaceutical company. This will help if they're forced to stay longer. Ishmael wasn't surprised by her boldness to say something so materialistic when they were standing right there. Amia then asked if she could stay there too. The chief could tell what group she was affiliated with and agreed to this, also reminding them that if they lack food, they have enough to share with those who helped with their vessel's repair. Rodia might take them up on that offer. Wondering what that dried fish tasted like, then Skadi approached the chief, who wanted to know what this was about. She was asking how they were surviving out there, by the sea. He saw that question as misdirected. They're doing that because they must survive. He smiled at her perceived hostility, left some firewood for the night and left. Skadi decided to leave. She couldn't learn much more from there. Gregor was confused by this action. She said nothing. Dante asked if they had anything to do with the coast. Or rather, if this had anything to do with the coast, and she said something about that. Before they got there, coasts hardly were a good place to live in. And Amia translated this. And Skadi was surprised at Dante understanding Aegir language. Dante didn't understand what she meant. Amia she clarified this by saying that Amia was speaking in Aegirian. She couldn't understand the conversation between Skadi and the chief. Yes, Skadi was Aegirian herself. Faust suspected that there were similarities between Aegirian and one of the city's languages. This was seen as a weird coincidence to Skadi, who had some things to look into, which they're too slow to see. Amia wanted her to tell them about that later, reminding her that this wasn't a solo mission, this was a team effort. She would take that into consideration and then leapt into the night, out of their sights. This worried Dante. Amia made it clear that she's thoughtful, but not good with people. She'll be fine. Then telling everyone that they should head inside. The sun was setting. Dante agreed. They should pick an unlit building and stay the night there, heading towards a nearby unoccupied building. Welcome to Terra, Limbus Company. Until next time. Hail the rabbit!